Hello. We should be live. Well, we kind of thought we went live, and then I obviously didn't click the button hard enough, so I've just had to restart again. So, hello, welcome, Rachel. Thank you for joining me. Rachel, lovely Rachel, is also an Ex Jehovah's Witness like myself, and she's a child sex abuse survivor. Rachel's story, she told me a while back, and it touched me. And yeah, Rachel would like to share her story with us. So thank you, Rachel, for coming on. Would you like to tell us a bit about how you grew up and how you came in contact with the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, sure. I was born in. My parents were already converted before I came along. And so they were quite radical, quite hardcore Jehovah's Witnesses, I'd say. Abided by all the rules and regulations. And that was in Plymouth in Devon.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I just say, Rachel, you're a bit dark there. Have you got a light?
Shall I?
I don't know whether it's just me, but that's it. Yes, we can't see your lovely face. We can now.
Okay. Hang on. I'm in an attic. Right, is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Yes, there we are. Okay. Right.
So were your parents converted, or were they born in as well?
No, they converted after the Second World War. By a few years, people came around to the houses and initially spoke to my mother, and then she sort of started to study, and then my father sort of got interested and involved. Yeah. So like I say, that was prior to me being born. Yeah.
And did you enjoy being a Jehovah's Witness child?
No, but I didn't know any different, I think. So I didn't know that children didn't go to meetings and sit for hours. As far as I know, everybody did do that, or assemblies, or, I think until I reached school age, I probably would have thought that that's quite what every child did.
Yeah.
You live quite a small life when you're little, don't you? You don't know any different. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's only when you mix with other children and they talk about perhaps going to church or going to Sunday school, or they talk about celebrations that you've got no idea. It's like a different language. Yeah.
It does make you feel quite secluded at school and left out, especially when they come back after Christmas and they're all chatting about Christmas. And, I felt quite excluded at school. I thought it was quite harsh.
I think I found it embarrassing not being able to join assemblies, school assembly, or not being able to join in activities. And you're very different, because even though there would be other religions represented, they still seem to come to some common ground over Christmas or Easter. But I think uniquely the Jehovah's Witnesses never participated in anything that was fun, really. So yeah,
because even their parties, I tried to avoid any Jehovah's Witness gatherings, because even those were boring and they were never fun. And even into adult years, we just played Pictionary and not much drinking allowed, and you're not allowed to sit and talk to boys for too long on your own. So, even they're limited things that we were allowed to do as kids. And, I don't know about you, but we wasn't allowed to play with the other kids out on the street or anything like that. So people from school would come and call for us, and then the next day at school they'd be like, why won't your mum let you come and play with us? And it was just embarrassing to have to keep saying. because you're not a Jehovah's Witness, I'm not allowed to.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think at that point I threw myself into a world of animals, which is still the case now, into a world of guinea pigs and, you know, hamsters, and created sort of probably a stronger bond with them than any human, really. So I found solace in the little fairy creatures, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, but school was a great I enjoyed school very, very much because I was being abused sexually at home. So this was one safe place where that didn't happen. There was no hint of anything like that happening. There was no as I call it, there was no closed doors, although obviously in school there were closed doors, but there was nothing that made me feel ashamed or made me feel dirty or so I actually embraced school, and I'd be the first in and the and the last out, you know, the kid that stays behind to put the chairs on the desk, you know. And that I appreciate now. It was my coping mechanism. I hope nowadays a teacher would think, this is a bit odd, she always stays behind or dawdles or whatever. But I'm talking 45 years ago, and those sort of signs weren't picked up really.
Yeah.
No. But now there is a more of an awareness of checking if kids are okay. Yeah. Yep.
Did you want to touch more on what happened, or?
Yeah, that's fine. So I had been unofficially fostered out from birth until I was 4. And those were happy times because I was safe and I was cared for, and I was included in another family. When I got returned to my birth mum and dad, is really when the abuse happened, and it happened at the hands of elders and brothers in the congregation I was in, and a neighbouring local congregation. So that happened by them having access to the house and being trusted. And basically my mother would leave the house to do chores or errands or whatever, leaving me at home alone. And these people would have access to the house and access to me. Yeah.
Wow. At such a young age too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not justifying what happened, it was neglect, but she was suffering herself from, I believe, mistreated and undiagnosed PTSD from the war. And really, she shouldn't have had the care of a small child. I believe now that she had a depression after birth that's quite recognised now as being a sort of maternity. You know, the maternity period was a huge trigger for her. And really, I shouldn't have been returned to the family at all, because she didn't manage being a caregiver at all. And her way of coping with that was to just leave, just to get out every day. Yeah, so that was monopolized. Is that the right word? It was seen as an opportunity. Yeah.
Wow. It's horrible.
It is horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People out there just like taking advantage of you know, a really bad situation you was in to start with, and then, you know, they come in and make it a thousand times worse.
Yeah.
Well,
so you can understand then that school was a sanctuary.
Yeah.
And I even used to go to the local library on my way home from school, so I learnt to read super quick. And would ask for any sort of books, really. So some of them wouldn't be age appropriate. I would just read voraciously anything I could get my hands on, which has worked in my favour for the rest of my life, because I've still got a huge love of literature. And I probably read books that were completely inappropriate, but certainly gave me a flavour of a very different life to the one I was leading. And not many of the books included the abuse I was experiencing, or the language I was hearing, or anything. So that again was a tremendous clue that actually something was very wrong, something wasn't right. Yeah.
Did you ever confide in anybody, or do you think anybody had an inkling?
That's interesting. If I was to have confided in anybody, it would have been a friend. You know, so somebody of my own age. I would never have considered confiding in a teacher or a doctor or a nurse or anything like that, school nurse, headmaster. Headmasters back in my day still wore the cap and gown, and you only saw them for punishment. You never ever saw a headmaster for a nice reason. So no, I didn't confide in anyone. I think I sussed quite quickly that it was quite dangerous to speak about those type of subjects, mainly because nobody else seemed to talk about them. So I thought, well, if I start talking about this, that's going to be really odd. That's going to be really strange, you know? And you learn to reflect and mirror what other people do in order to survive. Because if you were to blurt out a secret, I think I realised I was in a very precarious position if I was to have told, really, an adult.
Yes, you were scared that you'd get into trouble, kind of thing.
And wouldn't be believed. Definitely, that I just wouldn't have been believed. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were abused by a Jehovah's Witness. Did you say he was an elder?
Yeah. I mean, I think back in those days, they were sort of like Kingdom Hall servants, or they weren't, the term elder seemed to come in a little bit later on in, because we're talking back in the 1960s. So there'd be congregation servants and ministerial servants, or what have you. The sort of hierarchy, which is still the case, but it's got different names. Yeah.
And nobody knew about that, or did you tell somebody about that?
No, nobody knew.
No. And is this the David Dennis guy? Is that the?
No, he was he was a younger person. So he was just a ministerial servant. He wasn't an elder. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The other two are deceased now. Yeah, they would, by reason of coming to our house, would perhaps be for good reason, explainable reason, bringing something for my father, or bringing literature, bringing, you know, there would be an easy explanation as to why they were there, but not such an easy explanation as to why they were doing what they were doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just tragic, like not only being abused by one but many.
Well, I since have realised that actually we were more of a paedophile ring, because other, particularly women, have since come forward to the police in Plymouth with very, very similar stories, and we've named the same perpetrators.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And is that
so
David Dennis is one of those that other people come forward? Because
yes,
I know he's on the database. If I bring a picture up, hope it doesn't trigger you too much, but he's there on the database. A Jehovah's Witness elder jailed for 12 years for multiple sexual offences against a young girl.
Mm-hmm.
And God, this guy just makes me cringe. Like 9 of indecent assaults on a child aged under 13, 12 sexual assaults on a child aged 13 years old, 4 sexual assaults and penetration of a child. Disgusting man. Like, and did you say like he's out of prison now as well?
He came out of prison. Yeah. He didn't serve his full sentence.
I don't understand how. Like he's a danger to people.
Well, until society deal in a different way with CSA cases and also rape cases, I believe these sentences will always be, they won't reflect the crime at all.
And yet you've got people in prison for many years for minor offences.
Is it all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's been good, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Everything's good?
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan.
And yet you've got people in prison for minor offences that serve a lot longer time. It's just so unjustified. And looking on that database, there's 4 that I found recently. Now these 4 would have been at my conventions when I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I didn't know about these.
No.
And do you know what I mean? These are guys that some are elders, they've raped, and assaulted children.
Yeah.
And they're on the database now, but it makes you wonder like how long it took until they got there because of, the whole 2 witness rule that the Jehovah's Witnesses have. So if a child goes to an elder and says that they've been raped, they require 2 or 3 witnesses. So one of my friends I grew up with went and told the elders that she was being sexually abused, and they called her a liar.
Yeah.
And they left her in the situation and they didn't help her at all.
No.
So you can't always guarantee that if you do tell them that you're going to get help.
And I think for me, initially I wouldn't have had the language to explain what was happening anyway. So my language would have been very primary. So I wouldn't have been able to explain. The other thing is that my main caregiver, my dad, I perceived him to be the same as them because he was doing the same duties as them in the Kingdom Hall. So in other words, I suppose logically in my mind, I banded everybody in a suit the same. Now, whether that was the case, I don't know. And I can't ask him because he's since passed away. He's passed away just over 2 years ago. When I did have a conversation with him the last conversation I had with him, he said, because he knew about my abuse, because I told him, he said his hands were tied. Now, this is a phrase that I've heard, sadly, from other people as well, other elders, ex-elders, who've said that they would use phraseology like that, and that their commitment was to leave everything to Jehovah, and one bad apple didn't mean the whole congregation was bad. Now, that doesn't wash with the police. They don't care whether there's one bad apple or 1,000 bad apples. They're interested in prosecuting one or 1,000. But I think what I'm saying is that the attitude is that you can justify this by being, well, if we leave it all up to Jehovah, we leave it all up to God, he will eventually root out who's at fault. We just got to rest it all on him. Now, that is of no that's not any good to a victim.
No, that's no comfort.
I'm 58 now. So I've had quite a lot of practice in trusting that a higher source will deal with shit. And believe you me, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So what happened was I got involved with the ICSA, which was in the tail end of the Jimmy Savile. The ICSA inquiry was to confirm the belief really that in institutional settings and charity settings and religious settings and school settings and what have you, that there was a great sort of culture of abuse that was being hidden. And they did the joined up dots in my case with the things I revealed, and then put the dots together with other people who'd made similar complaints and allegations and what have you. So it was a very slow slog, a very long process. And they're coming to their conclusions now. Obviously, after COVID, things were halted quite a lot. But I think to leave things on a positive note, really, because I don't want to bore people or drag them down. There is now a lot more associations who are very willing to engage with either witnesses or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, or anyone actually who has suffered at the hands of should we call it cultural religious abuse. And this is new. This really is new, but they are very willing to listen and engage and appreciate that sometimes communities face barriers to being able to, if you like, come clean about what's happened to them, because they will be shunned or they will experience losing their family. And this is something that's only recently been recognised by both the police, by ICSA itself. They had no idea the great depth of the problem. They really didn't. And I'm thrilled that people like Victim Focus, Victim Support, Samaritans have all listened and are continuing to listen, continuing to engage with people like myself, people like you, and they really are taking on board that this is happening here and now, that this is no fairy story, this is really happening, and that people are too frightened to come forward, not just because of what's actually happened, but the fear of the repercussions if they do come forward, i.e. the shunning the segregation of them away from any sort of support of their families. You know, and some of those families are completely unaware of what this person has suffered, but they are being told, you can't talk to them, they're apostate now, you can't talk to them, they're disfellowship now. So like you, I'm passionate about getting the word out there that there are agencies that will listen. They don't have to be the police. They can be Women's Aid. They can be, like I said, Samaritans. They can be Lime Culture, which is a new strategy to listen to groups that are being marginalised like this. They can be Victim Focus. They can be your local GP or your local nurse, your health practitioner nurse, a teacher, a college teacher, a social worker. They can be literally any of those people, and they can signpost people in the right direction. Now, had I had that type of help and that hand up so many years ago, for one, the abuse would have stopped. For two, it wouldn't have continued generationally for years and years and years. It would have been stopped. And so I'm optimistic. I know we've got a hell of a long way to go. I really do. But just the fact that we've got the help out there, I know it takes courage. I know it does. Believe you me. And I know there are days when you just think, I don't want to address this, don't want to face it, I don't want to admit to it in my head. It wasn't that bad. All that rhetoric goes on. But there are helpers. There are helpers. There are genuine helpers out there. And us, we're a tremendous community. The Ex, honestly. I've cried to you, you've cried to me. We've all done it. We've all had our down days. And we've kept on going. You know, we really have, and we'll keep on going. And we can hold our hands out to the people coming through. And we can say, look, if I can do this, and I'm an old bird, and I am an old bird.
Bless you.
I am.
I'm not far behind.
But it can be done.
Yeah.
It can. Life can be sweet. Life can be good. We don't have to be directed or dictated by a religious group, a highly controlled cult. We don't have to be. We don't.
And also the Charity Commission of England and Wales is another good one, because they're actually investigating the Jehovah's Witnesses for covering up child sex abuse. And I remember speaking to them a few years ago, and I was on the phone with them for ages, and they were just like so shocked at all the stuff that I was telling them. And I've actually kept in contact with them, so we've emailed back and forth. And whenever there's some major news, I always email them and let them know, just to keep them up, keep them up to speed with what's going on. So, we can only hope that we'll end up with what happened in Australia with the Australian Royal Commission. We can just hope that, that over here in the UK and then in other places, that we get the same kind of justice happening.
Yeah.
I guess, they said that they're still doing stuff. They're moving slowly.
It is snail's pace, but at least it's acknowledged now. So when I first fled, which I did in my 20s, I literally had nobody to turn to. Now that isn't the case now. And I think it's amazing that the halls are shut, so people have got time alone to think and investigate and do a little bit of research of their own. That is amazing. That's amazing. We've got to build on that.
And also those at the moment that are away from their abusers, it might give them the time to think it over and possibly tell somebody about that.
Yeah, definitely. And we've taken back the power, the control. Definitely. And there are a lot of good police out there who are desperate to make a difference. Listen, I had 2 amazing detectives in Plymouth, absolutely amazing women, who I keep updating and keep telling, as you say, I keep on, anything that comes up that I think that may be relevant, even if it's only a snippet, I just let them know, and they always appreciate it. So it's like tiny steps, but they are steps, and they are steps forward. They're not going backwards, they are forwards. Somebody said to me once, my God, Rach, with your life script, wouldn't you like to just start again? Well, that isn't an option. And I can honestly say my life script, I pick it back up and take it with me again, because I've acquired friends and family along the way who are just so supportive, believe in what I do, believe in my activism, believe in keeping me going and what have you. I'm going to get emotional now, but yeah. So, you've just got to keep on keeping on. Yeah. And there are things that are going forward, things that, we might not even be aware of. But the grip is loosening. I can tell you that, and I'm so pleased. I never thought I'd see the day when things like the Australian Commission would find the findings that they have.
Yeah.
Nothing shocks me anymore. And I do say I'm bulletproof. I'm probably not, but I say I am. So yeah.
And you yourself, you're a big help to other activists. I thank you because you've supported me and you've donated so I can carry on sending out stickers and flyers to other activists for them to distribute. And now, due to your recent donation to me, I can carry on doing this and pay for the software to interview more victims and get more victim stories out there. But going back to what you said about the police, when last year I was planning on doing a protest for my local convention, which is only 14 miles away, because London was taking us like at least 4 or 5 hours to get to and then back again. So I contacted the council about it, the permissions, and they said I needed to contact the police. So I contacted the police, and then they rang me back and talked me through like some of the details. And then the one police lady says to me, she's like, if you know any victims, please tell me or get them to contact me. She says, because one of her colleagues had dealt with an Ex Jehovah's Witness abuse case before. So she was like, so I know all about it. So she said, if you know any victims, please tell them to come and contact me and let her know. So
yeah.
It's good when you find good police like that,
and they are out there. They really are. I mean, the 2 police officers who actually brought to trial David Dennis were horrified, shocked, because when he was in court, he had a posse of supporters, and they were all from his Kingdom Hall.
Wow.
And he walked into court thinking he'd have a sentence that was a year long.
Wow.
But they continued to support him in prison.
I'm just lost for words. Why?
Well, I can only think that the severity of what child abuse means just they've got no idea. And of course, they would like to believe that we've just made all this up.
Nothing winds me up more than calling victims liars. And like, especially because I've watched a few videos on YouTube where people have been interviewed about their abuse, and Jehovah's Witnesses are in the comments saying, "Stop lying," and all this. I'm like, how dare you call victims liars? And you know, if you go and read your actual policies on your website about your two witness role, you will see why. You know, why these victims are coming forward.
And yet, interestingly, if their kingdom hall's being vandalized, they call the police very rapidly. Which, you know, always amuses me. And they're like Fort Knox, you know, gates and God knows what. So so, you know,
big spiky fences around,
spiky fences and everything. You just think, my God, you know, if only the same protection was attributed to the children rather than the building, then you're addressing you're addressing the right thing. The ironies are absolutely, they're jaw-dropping. But again, if you can talk to victim focus, if you can talk to a social worker or trusted health visitor or a doctor or whatever, they are not going to reel in shock. They're not going to sit there and go, no way. They are going to very seriously listen and signpost you to other groups that will listen and help. That's a guarantee. That is a guarantee. That is one thing you can be sure of. They're not going to do an elder on you and sit you down in a room full of men. They're not. They're not. They're going to listen appropriately. They're going to act appropriately. And then they're going to make sure that you've got appropriate help, which is something which to me came as quite a revelation, that there were actually people, firstly, that you could trust, and secondly, that were willing to listen to this tale, this story, this, you know, this unfolding, and listen to it and take it very, very seriously, and then come back to me and say, well, sadly, you're not, you know, you're not the only one. So I would really admonish anyone, if you're even just concerned for somebody else's safety, another child's safety, or another young person's safety, or even somebody who's a friend who you've known for years, and it's okay to check in and just say gently, do you know, sometimes, you know, you're really sad over something. Do you want to talk about it one day? And it can be that chink of light, which just means that you've given them space to talk and to confide and to say, well, yeah, actually there is something I'd like to discuss today. It might not be, it might be a year down the line, it might be 5 years down the line, God knows, it might be decades down the line. But I really, really feel that COVID has given us a unique opportunity. I never thought I'd say that, but it has, of reflection, of taking our lives to a different sort of level and think about our priorities. It's also made us realise how cruel separation is. It's so cruel, because if we can't see our loved ones and our families and our, you know, it's just awful. It's awfully cruel. It's torture. It's a means of torture. And it's a means of dividing people. And that's what shunning does. Shunning divides.
Yeah, it is kind of like being in isolation. It is taking you back to being shunned and isolated as you was like back then. So it can be a bit triggering, like some days when, you know, it feels like the norm that you always knew for years kind of thing. So yeah. So you sent me some photos, Rachel, so I'll bring those up.
Okay.
If you wanted to tell us a bit about
So this is me and my very firstborn. I was a very young mum, and that's me and Danielle when I was 16. Yeah.
Cute. And I'm guessing this is a happy time.
This is a very happy time, yeah. This was at Pride in Cardiff, which I got invited to go along to, which I did the year before last on a beautiful summer's day.
Cool.
Which was great fun.
I haven't made it.
The lovely Alison Boniface was there.
Oh, okay.
She was on the Samaritan stall, but we didn't hook up. We didn't meet up, but it was a lovely day. Yeah. Yep.
I haven't made it to a Pride festival yet.
It's
there's one
very fun.
I can imagine there's one that happens in Birmingham, which is about 14 miles away from me.
Okay.
Before COVID hit, we was going to do like a Pride picnic in our town, because we have a castle and then we have like these grounds where it's like a big field, and was going to do like just a Pride picnic, because our town's never really done anything like that. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we've kind of got to wait until
this
year. But I'm quite looking forward to being involved in that.
Apparently Reading Festival has announced that they can go ahead.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means that they're anticipating lockdown will be over for the summer for big events. But yeah, that was great. That was great fun that day. Yeah.
This one?
Oh, right. So people wonder if I've been able to reconnect in any way with my spirituality, and the answer is yes. So I became a member of the Unitarian, a little local chapel near me, and we actually very proudly host same-sex marriage, and in fact I think at the moment we have more of same-sex marriages than we do of not. So,
cool.
Yeah, hence the flag behind you.
Yeah.
And it's that I think we've got things on our heads because it was St. David's Day. I think that was the occasion. Right. So it's a lovely warm little chapel, 300 years old, with great history and a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
These are my co-conspirators in life, Charlie and Lottie, and they are going to join me on doing a Samaritan's walk. We're going to walk 10,000 steps a day for 31 days.
Wow, that would wear me out.
Yeah.
So
that's for the month of March.
Cool. And this one?
I've taken up some willow weaving, and that was some of the things that I didn't make what's behind you there, but I've certainly willow weaved some really nice baskets, and it's very therapeutic and keeps me sane, and I grow my own willow now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I find that with craft stuff, like, it keeps me, because I have to be doing something all the time, and it keeps me occupied. I don't know where I'd be now if I wasn't into doing craft stuff, because I don't like to stop and think.
And the crafty people are always lovely, be them potters or willow weaving or I don't know, felting. They're always such wacky people who are really sweet, really nice. So I tend to fit in. Yeah.
And there's so many Ex Jehovah's Witnesses that are artistically talented, and we never got to really use that.
Not at all.
Because we were made to concentrate on other things. Like, I used to paint little notelets with like roses and things on, and the sisters used to buy them off me to give us get well cards, but it was very limited, and you couldn't go to college to pursue that or anything like that. So it's great now to be able to express ourselves properly with our talents.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So before we go, I just wanted to make people aware that I have this page, former Ex Jehovah's Witnesses True Stories of Abuse. Now, there I have like literally an album full of people's stories that they've wrote me and I've published, and I put them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can do them anonymously. I don't have to put your name to them, but you know, people do read them. I had somebody message me on Instagram the other day and he says, I'm not connected to Jehovah's Witnesses in any way, but I sat there for half an hour and read all the stories on your page. He says, thank you for doing what you're doing. So my goal with this was to raise awareness, public awareness, and I'm glad that it's working and people are reading it, because people, you know, like your story, Rachel, people need to know that this goes on, and you know, it's quite shocking. And then when I get a group of enough stories, I will put them into a video on YouTube as well, so then people can go and read them there. Also on my channel, you can go and have a look at my activism. Judge Me Unforgiven. And there's the protests that we've done there, which have been really interesting. And people walking past the protests have come and spoke to us and asked us why we're there. So again, we've been able to get the word out to the public. There's been people that have stopped. I know there was one guy that was, I think he was coming back to the religion, and he stopped and spoke to the protesters, and he says, I'm not going into the hall. Well, it was the convention. He says, I'm going to go home instead. So he literally turned around, and then somebody else said, thank you for reminding me why I left in the first place. And they went. So, you know, all the activism, it really does work. So,
yeah.
I mean, just quickly, what I wanted to do is start reading the stories that I've been told, just to, you know, make people more aware of what actually goes on behind the closed doors of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, right, my camera is right in front of that. So this is one of the first ones that I ever published. When I was 14, 15, I would go to shower. My stepmom would come in with me and play with my boobs. I never told anyone about it. I knew they wouldn't believe me. I tried committing suicide as early as 7. Molested and thrown aside like a piece of garbage. Don't force anything down children's throats. It will make them want to cut their own. When I was 14, I was friends with the new Jehovah's Witness at school. The first time I was allowed to stop over at her house, her mother fingered me when I got out of the shower. She told me I'd have to allow her to do this often if I wanted to remain friends with her daughter. She threatened to tell the whole town and deemed me a whore. One night, she really did me real damage. My mum took me to the hospital due to rectal bleeding. My non-Jehovah's Witness parents went to the police. And the fourth one, I've tried to take my own life many times, including cutting my neck with a knife and overdosing. I was sent to 3 crisis units over the years, being a JW. None of the elders, brothers, sisters seemed to care. At least I felt like that they didn't. It has almost been 2 years since I left the organisation. Since then, I haven't cut or gone to a crisis unit, even though my whole family shuns me. The organisation made me feel like I was not good enough, and I was trapped. When the elders, brothers, sisters heard about the crisis unit and depression, suicide attempts, their response was, you're not praying enough. You're not out in service enough. So that's just an example of 4 victims that were the very first ones that came forth and told me their story, and I think I'm now up to 66. Just people that have come forward and told me. So,
and sadly, Emma, you actually could probably put a times aside that of thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, any final advice you want to give to survivors, Rachel?
you're not on your own. If you need to reach out to somebody after seeing this, then please do so, be it Samaritans, be it a helpline that you feel is appropriate. Samaritans would be able to give you that, and they are there 24/7. Always consider that you are definitely not on your own, please. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are wacky people like myself and like you, Emma. We may not be able to respond individually to you, but we certainly always keep an eye out for messages. Certainly there's a whole lot of us that are willing to listen, but we do need you to take an active role in seeking some professional help, because we're not counsellors, we're not professionals. I'm a survivor. I'm not a counsellor. I know techniques that can help, but we can all be triggered by things that we hear and things that we assimilate. So what I would say is, please, if you need to talk to somebody, do it. You won't get judged. You really won't. You won't have the response that you would have had you gone and confided in people who haven't got your interests at heart.
Yeah. And Rachel, we can find you on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. My last name's Mellor, Mellor. I've run an Ex Jehovah's Witness group called Ex Jehovah's Witnesses Unite for 12 years. And if you want to come and join, if you're fading, if you're doubting, if you have family that are Jehovah's Witnesses and you want to come and talk to people who've been through the religion and left, then come and join the group. You're welcome. Also other cults, because there's ex-Amish, ex-Mormon. We've all been through a lot of the same. So any of you out there that want to come and talk, you can come and join the group and speak to other victims. You'll be surprised how many there are in there.
Yeah, definitely. We're a nice bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining me, Rachel.
Time has flown.
It does, yeah.
I was worried I'd be boring. I hope I'm
No, not at all. Like, definitely not. So thank you everybody for watching, and if you want to come on and talk about your experience, then just let me know, because obviously, like I keep repeating myself, the more we get this out there, then the more people are aware. So
you're doing a fab job.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good evening, everybody.
Yeah, everybody have a good day. It's just starting to go dark here.
Bye.
Bye.